Hi all, welcome back to Make More Bonsai, John here. A while back, I started this channel not sure if it would reach anyone or have any meaningful impact. I'm happy to say things are turning out okay, lots of folks are watching and engaging, leaving comments and all the stuff one could hope for in a YouTube channel. I even get an email here and there asking advice that I'm more than happy to offer a perspective on. I was particularly excited to see this comment question on a video titled Unlocking Bonsai Design Secrets. That question was, how do I apply this imagery to an L-swooped bonsai, short main trunk curved straight left? Naturally, I was curious and needed to see more, so I reached out and got some more specifics about the tree that was being referenced. It seems our curious viewer has a very common sample of a Juniper Procumbens, made into bonsai for general consumer purchases for a shop or a garden center. This triggers all kinds of warm fuzzies since I did get my start way back working for a commercial bonsai nursery, and this kind of tree was on the bestsellers list from day one. It's a great starter bonsai with a super resilient species, and from here the sky's the limit. It's the from here part. That's where lots of bonsai owners kind of stop. But Advon Strangle wants to take the leap and explore the big blue skies these little starter bonsai have to offer. So let's take a look at what I would do to get this tree on the road to bonsai awesomeness and set it up for a future in which branch selection will be more clear. So let's get to it. Juniper Procumbens is a super hardy mounding juniper. They tolerate lots of environments from Zone 6 to Zone 8 to 9, which is to say they can handle a long cold winter, and they do well when winters aren't particularly long as well. They respond well to pruning and are fairly aggressive growers. The branches are flexible, so applying wire and shaping them is not too challenging. All in all, a great choice to start growing bonsai. I mentioned mounding juniper. Let's talk about that. Junipers generally have two kinds of growth habits, mounding and running. A running juniper or elongating juniper will, in spring, send out long shoots that extend the reach of the tree, then later get further populated with foliage. California juniper and Rocky Mountain junipers are popular bonsai species that are of the running variety. A mounding juniper will, in spring, begin to send out new growth closer in, kind of building up strength, and then send out long running shoots to extend their reach before later populating those extensions. Shimpaku juniper, such as Kishu or Itoigawa, are examples of mounding junipers, as well as, you guessed it, Juniper Procumbens. Why does this information matter? Most of all, it offers you a strong visual indicator of when it is the least stressful to prune your bonsai. We'll dig into that a little bit later. For now, let's talk about Juniper Procumbens. They start out already reaching off to the side to almost kind of crawl on the ground. They send out multiple shoots that do exactly the same thing, and over time it develops a higher branch set above the center of the tree. It kind of makes mounds on top of another mound until it gains some height, each level kind of stacking its way up above the previous mound. This is why the young Procumbens look the way it does in the photo. It really is at the beginning of its journey. And frequently you'll see these on sale growing in a bonsai pot, and if that's what you're going for, then watch no further. Well, actually, maybe stay on with us for a while, and we'll change things up a bit for the Procumbens to adopt a more tree-like appearance earlier on. To get this started on a strong bonsai path, we will need to kind of accelerate the development of some height to the tree, to create a trunk line that will have some branches to choose from. I'm happy to say, it just so happens I have a Juniper Procumbens on hand. It's maybe a year older than the tree in the photos I received, so it's already developed another branch. It's more like an arm really, but essentially a very similar L-shaped base trunk that is standard for Procumbens junipers. So let's get started. First, I'm going to clean up the tree to make some room for wire to be applied in order to foist one of those arms upwards to create a trunk line. I'm trimming off any young, underdeveloped branches that I think will be in the way of the wire as I apply it. It's best not to wire down any of the foliage. It'll look bad and add stress to the tree. I'm also clearing some away so light can penetrate deeper into the tree to encourage more growth on the interior. It's also best to consider leaving as much foliage on the tree as possible so it can gain strength as the trunk settles into the bend over the next year. At this stage, we're not so concerned with branches yet. There's plenty of growth to encourage to grow out into a branch later, and since this tree has that other arm, it could become a useful branch in the initial design. After removing enough foliage to gain access to the main trunk, it's time to apply some wire. I'm using copper wire here because it'll hold a bit better than aluminum, but aluminum wire is just as good. You just may need a thicker wire or double the application of wire to get the same holding power as a copper wire. To begin wiring, insert the wire deep into the pot. This will secure it and keep it from spinning in your hand as you wrap it around the trunk. When applying the wire, make sure it makes contact with the trunk or the branch that you're wiring. To do this, one hand holds the wire in place while the other wraps the wire around it. Loop the wire around the trunk or branch, trying to maintain an even 45 to 55 degree angle between each pass. The wire shouldn't be pulled tight, just resting on the surface. A few gaps are okay as long as the majority of the wire is making contact. When applying the wire also, the trunk or the branch shouldn't be used for leverage when you're bending the wire. All of the work and pressure should be done with your hands supporting the wire, while making every attempt to not damage the bark while applying the wire. When one full loop is finished, the support hand moves up to the new coil like this, complete the loop, hand moves up, complete the loop, hand moves up, and so on. The degree of angle of the wire will assist with maintaining the energy of the bend you apply, and because there is that spread of an even 45 to 55 degrees between each coil, the wire will also spread the energy needed to hold it in place over the wider area. If the wire were coiled close together, like a spring, there won't be enough friction and leverage to hold the shape too wide, like 60 degrees or so, and there isn't enough actual wire to spread the energy well enough to hold. 45 to 50 degrees is the correct balance of spacing to gain the most control over the bend. The result of this will be a neat, even, consistent application of wire, making plenty of firm contact with the trunk or the branch. While applying that wire, it's important to remember not to wire down any foliage. You can see I'm spending some time nudging and moving the foliage out of the way before finishing the coil. If you were to wire down any of the foliage, it's sort of like you're injuring the tree. The tree will respond to this damaged foliage and work to heal the wound using energy for that rather than growing and adding more foliage. I've also wired that branch extension so we can position that as well. Now, so far we aren't doing anything really out of the ordinary. We're doing very basic, getting a bonsai started kind of work here. And this is important kind of work to do. Gaining mastery over these basic moves, wire application, and general pruning make up a large portion of what the bonsai practice is, and help prepare you for all your future design work, so take your time and enjoy the process. Once that wire is applied, it's time to do another basic bonsai activity, bending a wired branch or trunk. So, let's work out our goal for this session, now that we're halfway into it. We're looking to address that L-shaped trunk that extends off to the side, to raise it into an upright position, to give this little juniper some height and build branches onto. That about sums it up, so let's get to some bending. Juniper procumbens are pretty flexible, just like all junipers when they're young, like this 2 or 3 year old tree. Let's consider what happens when you bend a branch or a trunk. Once you execute that bend, you're injuring the cellular tissue in that section you're bending. The outside of the bend stretches the tissue, and the inside compresses the tissue. This triggers the tree to send some resources to those areas to repair and rebuild. The more extreme the bend, the more damage that needs to be repaired. If we take a look at the inner workings, we can better understand what's happening. There are 3 layers surrounding the core wood of the tree throughout. The inside layer is called xylem, which brings water and resources up through the tree. The outside layer is called phloem. Phloem brings nutrients created through photosynthesis down through the tree. And between them is a layer called cambium. This is a layer of undifferentiated cells that create all the things a tree needs, such as leaf buds, roots, and new cells that contribute to the creation of more xylem and phloem. The cambium cell divides, leaving behind fresh xylem and pushing out fresh phloem. This is what thickens the tree as it grows. When an area is damaged, like, from bending like we're doing now, the cambium divides more aggressively to repair the area and get it functioning like it used to. This action creates more xylem, cambium, and phloem in that area, fattening and stiffening it to repair the damage. Over time, the damage is completely healed, and the excess of cells created help reinforce the damaged area that retains the shape it was manipulated into during the bend. You can see when the bend has taken firm hold when you see growth beginning to swell around the wire, called cutting in. Now let's get to the fun part. When bending the trunk, be sure to support the rest of the tree with your other hand. And with that hand, feel for any signs of stress. The soft crackling sound is okay as long as it's on the inside, but it's a warning sign of it possibly breaking, so proceed with caution. The wire makes use of that energy you are applying and helps to spread it out over the wire and the rest of the branch. Let's make that first bend really low on the trunk. starting to raise the trunk up in small increments, just to ensure we are familiar with how much stress the trunk can handle. To spread the energy of the bend over more area, add a slight twist, maybe 20-30 degrees in the direction of the coils of the wire. When you apply that slight twist when you are bending a branch, you're extending the distance you can bend, because that twist is also absorbing the energy of the bend along with the wire. That twist will also turn the direction of the live vein of the juniper's vascular system with it. That motion also allows you to extend and add a bit more to a bend than if you were to directly bend a branch straight along in a single plane. When making these bends in the trunk, it's important to be mindful to not make a spiral, like a spring. The bend should place the trunk a bit in one direction, then change the plane forward or backward, then reinforce the design by not returning the bend back to where it originated, but instead move it further backward or forward, or in the same direction of the original bend. This mindset will help avoid an even spring-like spiral and lead the design into a less symmetrical and more natural look and feel. Be mindful also of the location of the coils of the wire. These will help guide your bending direction choices. You want the outside of the coil to also be aligned with the outside of the bend. This will ensure your bends have the support needed to prevent a full break in the branch. Small cracks that expose cambium will heal over time, but a larger break will require more time to heal. We can also position that lower branch into a place that will help create an asymmetrical triangle as the branches develop. This is very much a great place to stop and allow the tree to recover. We did a lot of bending right now, so the tree will need some time to reorient itself and begin growing again. So, what next? On a juniper bonsai of this size, it's easy to get caught up in trying to reduce, and soon you may find you've taken too much foliage off the tree and it can start to lose vigor, look unhealthy, and maybe fail altogether. It's important to take your time and consider each pruning decision and how it benefits the design and health of the tree. Junipers get most of their energy and strength from their foliage. A great hint to confirm this is to consider the roots of many types of junipers. Mostly they're thin except for the ones close to the base of the tree. These thin roots are produced opportunistically when conditions favor resources available to them, like a rainy season. They then kind of wither back when a dry season happens, and the tree then survives on energy stored and produced by the foliage. At least that's their behavior when living in harsh conditions like the desert or a rocky cliff. In a pot that you're regularly watering, the roots are plentiful since we are renewing the resources, so no problems there, but they still behave the same way. In a seasonal cycle, junipers will accumulate energy through summer and autumn to have plenty of reserve to pass through winter dormancy and have a ton of energy ready to produce new growth in spring. This positive energy condition in winter gives us an opportunity to do some design work on a juniper, such as pruning and wiring and bending, and the tree will have enough energy reserves to remain healthy and begin to grow when spring arrives. During springtime, the juniper will push out a ton of new growth, powered by the energy reserves accumulated through the previous summer and fall. Once that new growth has been produced in spring, the tree has used up its reserves and is now in a negative energy condition. During this time, the new growth needs to produce all of the functioning pathways to feed the tree once again to return to that positive energy state. Sometime around midsummer, when the new growth has transformed from a light green branch to a more brown color as bark begins to form, this is an indicator that the energy is returning to the positive energy state. Juniper Procumbens is a mounding juniper. Remember when I said I'd get back to this? Which means it will form clumps of foliage in early spring and then send out long extensions when it has produced enough energy to do so. When the extensions turn from light green to that dark brown color, that's a visual indicator that the tree is now fully producing food and storing energy again. In order to maintain the health of a tree, and to do all the things you want to do to design and style your bonsai, one needs to be mindful that a tree needs to be in a condition in which it can keep all the growth and leaves and branches that it has, and be able to add more if needed. That positive energy state in a juniper is in winter, with all of the stored energy from growing all summer and fall. This is when we are wiring this juniper and removing some foliage to establish some basic design and shape. And again, in mid to late summer after the growth from spring has hardened off. That's when this juniper will have regained a positive energy state. This is the next time we can even consider performing any styling tasks like pruning or some wiring for small bends. The bonsai practice is a partnership shared with you designing and applying mechanical training procedures to realize the design, the tree, which will respond to your training decisions and help guide future design decisions, and time, for that ongoing dialogue of responses to grow and evolve. When you style a bonsai, it becomes an ever-changing and evolving living thing. When you think 1, 2, or 3 years on into the future, you set the tree up for continued success and maybe experience fewer setbacks to your design. It's essential to form that partnership as you start the training process and being mindful of the seasonal cycles as the design of the tree evolves. I really appreciate the comment that triggered this training session. It really offered an opportunity to spend some time with a really common bonsai scenario, using a really common bonsaiable species to kind of reestablish some basic bonsai practice, which are so important to continue to revisit to help reinforce strong bonsai practices as a whole. Thanks for watching. I hope you gained some helpful insights from this little video. Maybe like and subscribe and leave a comment below, and possibly check out the book or the t-shirt and hat links in the Show More section below. Your participation and support really helps energize this little production and helps me dream up new stuff to show you, because bonsai stuff is kinda cool, and so are you for helping support this channel.